Welcome back to the Obojima Podcast. My name is Jeremiah, and I am joined with Ari and Adam. We are the writers of Obojima, and you are joining us for our weekly writers meeting where we sit down, we talk D&D, we talk fantasy, we talk anime, we talk Obojima. We just come up with cool concepts and jam. Some of it makes it into the book, some of it doesn't. And today we've got a topic. We really want to hone in on like a cultural event within Obojima, and maybe it's more specifically Yatterman. Like a set of games like the Olympics, like the Highland Games, like sumo, where they kind of like get around to watch this big thing, and it makes shockwaves within the community, and people know about it, and it's important in some way. And so currently listed as the Grand Tournament. I don't know if that's the final working title here, but we want to jam on what that could look like. Now, we already have a rough idea, and that is a set of competitions between 4 teams that all happen simultaneously. And each of the teams are, like, I guess, represent the 4 great river spirits of Obojima, which is Din, Yon, Go, and Mu. And glad I remember that. Nicely done. Each of those river spirits are brothers, right? Like canonically within the world, they're 4 brothers, the 4 great rivers. They're represented by a monkey, a boar, a salmon, and a dragon.
Those are your mascots.
You'll be familiar with them. Actually, you can see, I'm going to say Din.
Yeah.
Din is the salmon one?
Yeah.
Oh, gosh, I'm good. You can see Din in his like minor form underneath Opal Falls. He takes on the form of like a half salmon, half human type character. But his true form is this ginormous blue-backed salmon. And Din specifically has like a very unique relationship with the hunter, and like takes on this like kind of like circle of life role within Obojima that the blueback salmon has in itself.
Sacrificed himself to feed the multitude.
A martyr, a true martyr.
Yeah.
Call him Jesus.
Yeah. The thinly veiled allegory.
Because you're eating this guy's body.
Yeah.
Well,
thanks, Din.
Probably shouldn't make those jokes. We might need to cut that. Sorry, everyone.
Just right then. Oh, my God. Table flip.
Anyways, back to the program here. But so we wanted to make like a really fun, super interesting kind of like, culturally cool event. Adam is a huge fan of sumo and is quite up to date on the rules and understanding and kind of the culture around it, which is amazing. We worked with Emma as well, and she was helping us out with some, the cultural importance of sumo and things like that. But if you're like, I don't care about sumo and I don't care about the Olympics or Highland Games,
I care about this.
We can go back and reference Avatar because we have to once a podcast. I think it's the equivalent of like the wrestling matches that you first get introduced Toph into, or you see the boulder and hippo and all the other things like that. Kind of like hippo, when you go to that town, I don't remember the town it is, everyone is talking about those people. They're like, oh my gosh, did you see the boulder? Like all the earthbenders love these people. And I think that's kind of what we're going for here, is to make pseudo celebrities within the culture. Maybe not all of Obojima. Like, I don't know, if you go to if you go to Sky Kite, they might be like, I don't know who any of these people are, but certainly within Yatterman, this is important.
And I think it could be island wide. I think most major cities would kind of know, because there might be, like let's say, like in Sky Kite, you might have somebody who's a really good wrestler.
Yeah.
And they're like, wow, you've gotten really great. You would be perfect for the Grand Tournament arena. Yeah. And then they would make the trip down to Yatterman and sort of try out for the team. And then if they make it, great. And then all of a sudden now you've got a representative from Sky Kite. And maybe you go like when they kind of scan the crowd, and then there's people holding up the placard for that wrestler or that competitor, and they're like, "Yeah, we came all the way from Sky Kite down here to see our boy do well.
Our boy, he's doing it.
They're doing it. Living the dream,
Yeah. So let's explain a little bit about the games that from what we understand.
Because we don't understand much.
We don't understand.
Yeah,
that's why we're getting you up to speed, and then we're going to start ideating. So there's a grand tournament, this thing that occurs.
Yep.
There's 4 teams.
Yep.
Each of them, when a game occurs, all of them are in the game all at once.
Mm-hmm.
Unlike traditional, maybe not all traditional, but sports where it's, at least Western sports, it's usually one team versus another. In this case, it's 4 teams all playing against each other all at once.
Yeah.
And then within that, the game itself changes on a regular basis. There's like maybe 4 or 5 games that change, and the teams don't know what they're playing in until the day before.
Yeah.
And those games often represent challenges or are representative of the rivers.
And they're also representative of mythological stories. Like we were kind of thinking like there's a mythological story of how, let's say Din, had to navigate this certain part of the rapids, and then that would be kind of represented in sort of the story. Like everybody now has to go through Din's rapids. Yeah. And so they all try it. And this one might kind of favor the Din team because they're sort of specialized to do that. But the other teams through their cunning or their abilities to be nimble or their strength would then, apply themselves and either fail or be victorious.
And so a game like this might be like one person on your team holds a bowl of water and has to work themselves through a maze while everyone else on your team is either defending you or trying to push other people's waters out of their hand. Yeah. And whoever gets to the center first with their water and pours it in wins the game. Yeah. And so what does that look like? And it's representative of the rivers finding their path. Or a game where it's just like which river flows the hardest or whatever, the strongest of the rivers, and it's about occupying a ball, and whoever has the ball, their water flows, and whoever fills up a cup or a huge container first wins. So now it's like about holding on to a ball and kind of keeping track of it. Another one is about calmness and balance of the water, where one person is balancing on top of a pole and the other people are, protecting them or throwing things at other enemies. And maybe there's, in a lot of these things, there's probably some intelligence-based situations or problems you have to find, like maybe uncovering potions that are locked in boxes, or maybe the, rangers going through and finding where secret tools have been buried within the space, through survival. So there's all of these different things. I'm painting these pictures so you can kind of get an idea of what we're talking about. And now we're just going to go back to referring to them as games.
Something you said is really interesting. Something you said is really interesting to me in that. So you were saying like, okay, so the ranger will have something to do and the intelligence-based characters do. So that does imply that it is players have their characters in the games though.
So I think what we're doing is we'll build it so you can, like, I don't know that we'll exactly say the rules, like here are the rules on how you play this game. But I think what you do is you build in story points for those players to shine. And that way, if the DM so chooses to put them in, they understand the direction to go in. So they're not just like everyone's wrestling and the wizard can't use magic, so they're screwed.
But the primary purpose, just to be clear, is not that these are games designed for like, hey, this session we're playing the games, right? And now this is mostly like, this is a sporting event that takes place within the city of Yadamon that people are crazy about.
Yeah.
Right. And so things could happen around like the culture of the games that you would be, that, if you're in Yadamon, you will experience like, oh, this is event day, and you just kind of wander into town like, what? Yeah. And like you get kind of swept up in it. Or maybe you know about it and you're excited to go here. Maybe that's the reason you're in Yadamon, right? So it's mostly the idea that this is a feature of Yadamon as opposed to necessarily designed for the player. Like, you're not saying like we're forming a team and therefore you're now entering the games necessarily. Is that correct? Okay.
That's correct. Yeah, it's more culture first.
Yeah.
With like the understanding that players will want to play in it. So we will build the stepping stones to allow that without fully like here are the functions of the game.
Yeah. And I think like, generally at this point we would have like you're doing an Obojima adventure and it takes place during the grand tournament arena. So there's all this energy, there's all this bustle, and there's all this kind of confusion going on where, there's vendors and everybody's talking and there's all talking.
People are wearing their jerseys or whatever.
They've got their, din hats on with the big fish head. And so there's like, it's all happening. And in the middle of that, then the adventure happens. Like something gets stolen or, a thing goes missing or like somebody tries to do something nefarious. And then the adventurers in the middle of this crowd and this hoopla, they have to solve the problem. However, I do think there could be something like a free RPG day where it is your party gets conscripted and now you have to compete in the games, and it's just like this little.
And what happens when your party's randomly assigned to different teams? So you're not all together.
So here's a question. So if I'm, let's say the equivalent of a baseball fan. So let's say like, okay, I'm not going to go play on the Dodgers when I go to Los Angeles. I'm not going to be like, cool, I love baseball, I'm going to go play baseball. But what I can do is do a pickup game.
Yeah.
Is this a thing where, you go to this tournament arena, the grand tournament arena, to watch the best people on the island play? But, if I go to a local park, somewhere else, are there kids playing this game?
I mean, I think there might be some games that could be played outside.
Yeah.
But I think for the most part, there are mechanisms and there is a lot of effort that goes into the disassembling and construction of each of these arenas that it's like you never play the one where you have to dig a trench because like that one's impossible. But like the one that's like a pole and you're throwing like fruit at each other, like, okay, yeah, we could set up 4 poles. Like maybe of the 5 games that are played, 2 of them are played recreationally outside, but some of them are like, this is a huge spectacle that you really only get to see here.
So like looking at sumo, like sumo's not like a recreational thing that you do, right? Like,
I mean, I think, like to my understanding, it's like, the professional part of it is this long, but there are these clubs where you can go and learn. And some of them are connected to high schools and some of them are just kind of independent, but from an early age you're learning. If you want to, you can learn sumo and then move up in the ranks and then eventually try to make your sort of career out of it. You kind of apprentice into it, and then it is a lifestyle. Like it's not like other professional sports where you do something and you're doing your side job. It is like you live it, breathe it, eat it 24/7.
So I don't know how familiar you guys are with like ranking systems within like I guess like game elos for big online games. So like a MODA, like a League of Legends type game. I'm going to use this because I used to play it when I was younger and I like understand how it functions. So the way it works is you play the game and you get a rank. So it's like I'm bronze. And like everyone's playing a game and you're bronze. And then you go to gold. Then you're silver. Then you go to gold. Then you go to platinum. Then you go to diamond. Then above that, there's a nether thing. And that thing is called Challenger. And there's only 200 people in Challenger in a nation. And so now it is ELO system. So it's like I'm in platinum. I go above that. I'm at, I have so many points based off of how many games I've played, and that puts me in challengers. But the moment someone gets more points than me, if I'm ranked 199, I drop down to 200. And if I get someone gets more points than me again, I drop out of challenger and I'm back to platinum. And so the way this game could function is like the top 30 players get to play. And when some of them get hurt, like the next players below them drop up. So you would have to to get into this game, you would have to go in and play like an unofficial game by like a bunch of judges and tournament, reps. without anyone there and then rank higher than like the next 40 players.
Yeah.
And so like you could, like players might be able to get into it, but you have to go in and like outperform everyone. Just be like leagues above them for them to be like, okay, maybe you can be the backup for when the one of the 10 top, 30 people drop out or whatever it is.
That's a lot like sumo, because sumo has there's like the top division, and then below that there's another subdivision, and they have their own tournament. But then the ones who win the what they call a jurio, if you get to be a champion of a jurio, there are in the top division. If you get to the bottom, you can get bumped out.
Yeah,
and so you fall down into jurio, and then they get promoted up into the next level. I think it's called Makano Uchi, but you get up into that next level, and so you can see people are falling out and going up. And so maybe there is like this AAA baseball or AA baseball, and but it's like semi-professional.
Yeah.
And so maybe there's small little tournaments. They don't have the sort of production value that the Grand Tournament Arena has.
Yeah.
But they're doing stuff like that,
or they only play in the off season.
Yeah, and then there's some kind of ranking that goes around. Maybe there are these judges that go out. It could be the Courier Brigade is kind of connected with them because they travel. And so maybe they take the rankings, like at the end of these little semi-professional bouts, they write a ranking, they put it in the Courier Brigade mailbox. The Courier Brigade collects all those from all over Obojima, comes back to Yatamon, tallies them all up and says, here's what we've got for our next tournament. Who's got the highest ranking? And then they organize it from there.
It'd be interesting to see like villages and towns that really care about this, who aren't getting to see the show, but like once a month, the Courier Brigade comes and changes the scoreboards, and everyone's like, he's dropped out of the front. And then like 3 weeks later, a bard comes by and is like has written down like a shot caller, all the things that happened in the last big tournament. And they're like, anyone who wants to come to the inn, I'll be performing the tournament. And they just read what happens, and everyone's like, oh my God.
A dramatic reading. Yeah.
They like unfurl it in this big scroll. Like in sumo, they have this thing called the banzake, which is like the ranking. And it's this, some of them are just amazing. They're beautiful. They're just like all done in calligraphy, and it's all this like grid, and they unfurl the banzake, and you can kind of see where everybody's ranked. And the judges have all kind of determined that could be a really fun moment where, like you say, they come writing in, they unroll this, and there's like maybe, if like there's certain villages that take part in these things, they have a dedicated board, and so it could be a nice thing, like you just in like the art, you could just see one of these, in the background, and you're like, oh, they're part of this Grand Tournament Arena system.
That's just a fun little bit to add in different villages and stuff. I think that's cool.
Yeah.
Are there fixed events? Like okay, so you said that the teams know the event that they're going to participate in the day before.
Yeah.
So does that mean there's like a pool of like there are a dozen different events, and it's either pulled by at random, or some judge decides what the event is going to be, but it's basically, are there set events that they that they go to so that you could train for an event?
Yeah, I think there's like 5 games, and then what game they decide to play is random. And so like maybe there's like 3 or 5, I don't know. Let's say there's 4 tournaments a year, or maybe 2 tournaments a year with the huge one or something like that. And like everyone gets hyped, and it happens, and it builds up, and there's like the day before they do a draw or something like that, or maybe they put 4 boats or 5 boats that represent the different games, and float them down like a stream in like or something like that. Whichever one wins, that's the game they do. And then everyone's
each team can choose one that they want. I'm sorry, I'm just building on that idea. So everyone has a little boat. Like each team has a boat. And like we'll say we're on a team, we all get together, like we want to do, number 2.
Yeah.
Right. Challenge number 2. Yeah. We're set for that. We've been training for that. So I'm going to put a number 2. Other teams might also be training for 2, so they'll put a number 2. right? But everybody chooses one of the 5 and put it in their boat, float it down the river. And so if multiple people choose or multiple teams choose the same one, it's more likely that it'll end up, but it's not a guarantee. All right, so everyone's kind of angling for one, but like it could do, it's still kind of random.
That's cool. I like
and
that.
then some teams like they're like got a strategy, so they do number 4.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right.
And then it lands, and they're like, yeah, and the other 3 teams are like, oh, jerks, like.
That's cool.
It's that boar
It's
team.
fun. It's
I
a
dig
little added tension.
Yeah,
What's going to happen?
That's cool.
So the other thing that we were kind of toying with is the idea that the teams aren't built by you, but rather, let's say there's 30 professionals or something like that, and each team, well, we'd have to pick a number. Let's say there's 24, so I can evenly divide this amongst 4. So there's six people on each team, and so the 24 top professionals aren't always in like, this is the din, like this is the salmon team. Instead, you are given at random, like, I'm part of the salmon team now or something like that. And so what I think is cool is you get characters that are like Borgo is like known to be this like big brute, and he hates like this like really slender like scheming guy.
This like rivalry.
Yeah, rivalry. Yeah. They're always at each other's throats, and now it's like, but when they're on the team together, they're unmatched.
You might have some people that are just have reputations for being bad teammates, but individually awesome.
Really good.
Yeah. That's fun.
Like good like support people where it's like, oh yeah, like they're never the star of the show, but they're always like, they unlock the potions and they know, they're like great diggers or whatever. So they're perfect for these 2 events or something like that.
And it could be like a weird twist of the draw. Like you get all the bruisers on one side and then all the wizards on another side. And it's like, which will win? Brute, brawn versus brain. This will be the decider.
Even like the choosing of the teams is like a cool... There's like the choosing of the teams and then the event selection as like this pre-event event,
Pre-event event.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
I think what it would do is make a lot of like hubbub before like there'd be so many, there's like, okay, man, like we got to go to the team choosing, and it's like a huge crowd, and then after that like 2 days later we're going to the event, and then
it's like the night before, like at the choosing event, it's almost like you imagine like the equivalent of a tailgate party, right? Everyone kind of out there, it's like outdoors, everyone's eating and like kind of having fun and speculating. It's like, oh, these 2 haven't been on the team together in like 9 years or whatever. Who knows what's gonna happen?
It'd be interesting though, like if the first big event is like, they're going to choose the event, because once the event is chosen, then people have to build the arena to that event. And sometimes those arenas are like super complex and elaborate.
That's interesting.
And so they choose the event, and then there's like a week of like partying.
Yeah.
And then they choose the play of the teams.
You're saying there's a week-long like sporting festival?
Yeah, or 2 week long. Yeah. So it's like the event, then they choose the team, and then it's like, then they open up the arena and reveal the arena. And you get to see this like elaborate set with all the cool like swinging pendulums or whatever they've got, or rotating bridges, and it's like, oh my gosh. And then you get to see the reaction of the team. They're like, ooh, yeah, we can do it. And other teams are like, yes, we got this,
I think the interesting part too is during that week setup, everyone's partying and having a good time except for the teams who are like vigorously training, like
isolated,
strategizing.
Yep.
They have to choose a captain. Like somebody has to represent the team as their leader. So they have to figure out who that's going to be. Like there's some fun stuff.
So maybe it's like, maybe the team captain is like a big deal, because what if the team captain earns the most point? I guess like I don't know, like if your score. Like if everyone gets a score and that adds to like how popular you are in the ranking, the team captain gets the most points if their team wins, but they also lose the most points if their team
They're on the hook.
loses.
So like it could be interesting. Like that's also a way to balance a little bit. Like your top, if you have 4 teams and it's, there's 6 people on a team, like your top 4 players are never on the same team. They're just they're designated as captains.
Yeah.
Right. These are your 4 captains, and then the rest is filled out. And being a captain is like that higher
like
rank.
Yokozuna.
Maybe they don't pick. Maybe it's just solely based off of rank.
Yeah.
Like, who's the highest ranked person on your team? Their captain.
Yeah.
That's cool. I like that a lot.
Then they're probably like, your celebrities, like, and then you have your up and comers who it's like, this is their, only their first like official tournament, but they're supposed to be a phenom.
Yeah. So we were actually Ari and I were talking this morning about sumo, and we're saying like there's in sumo there can be up to 4 yokozuna, and once you get promoted into yokozuna, you cannot be demoted. You stay as yokozuna no matter what. But if you start to lose as a yokozuna, you get only so many like bad tournaments before they kind of tell you like you got to retire. Like a yokozuna cannot, get beat all the time. Like, so if you start to go on a downslope, so it's kind of like, I think about ancient Egypt where the pharaoh had to in the very ancient times, they had to do a ritual called the Hebsed, where the pharaoh would have to run around their kingdom or, like this incredible distance to show that they were godlike. And as, once a pharaoh got to a certain point where they were like, I can't do it no more, I'm too tired, then they were ritually sacrificed and then and consumed. And then that's their god essence went back into the people. So in the same manner, the yokozuna, this kind of went on a crazy tangent. But the idea is that once you reach this high rank, you're not allowed to ever go down. So you either have to phase out or continue to like be super powerful.
Yeah. It's like if you're designated a paragon or whatever, it's like you're a paragon forever.
Yeah.
And if you are like showing your age, it's time to step down.
Yeah.
Right. But you were still step down as a paragon.
Yeah.
Like you never go down.
And then you can move into like being an instructor or a teacher or a judge or a part of the community, but you're just not competing no more.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
And there was another thing I think we were talking about where it came to this, where that there's the part of it that's a physical challenge and a mental challenge, or challenging you on different levels. But then there's the other part of it where these are kind of sort of metaphors, or even they even have like some kind of spiritual significance where whoever wins, like if the Boar wins, the Boar River, then there's some kind of significance for the rest of the year until the next sort of tournament that, if the Boar wins, then it declares something that's spiritual or mystical, or, we're going to harvest at this time, or we're going to plant this certain kind of food now because to honor the Boar spirit. There's like something that mobilizes throughout the culture that's based on sort of the outcome of this tournament. So I don't know if that's something we want to do or if that's cool.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say it could be representative of the a region, like each because the boar wraps within the Blackwater wetlands, and then Din either represents the Gale Fields or it leads and separates, Din at the end splits into two and creates the Coastal Highlands. And so it could be representative of the Coastal Highlands.
Sure.
Mu is the
kind of like Shiratashi.
Mu's the that one there? Okay. Mu could be Shiratashi. Mu could also be the Land of Hot Water. We wanted it to be, and then Yon would be either the Gift of Shiratashi or the Gale Fields, or maybe both of them. Like maybe Yon just encompasses that huge area.
Yeah, it could be like there could be two that fit into one.
And so it could just be like Good Harvest, or like maybe it's like the Hog River won. Thus, like maybe we can travel into the Blackwater wetlands this year. Like maybe this is a good year for traveling. Or
so, are you saying that it actually has like there's a metaphysical consequence of some kind, or is it more culturally like a belief, less of a reality? Got it. Okay.
Or maybe people, at that time make a pilgrimage. Like if the Land of Hot Water wins, it's like everybody's like encouraged to go to Mount Arbora. If you want good fortune, you go there to kind of go to a shrine, and
it could be like these victory pennants that are kind of flown from like different things, and
you get to take the trophy. Like in sumo, they have the Emperor's Cup, and it's like you could take the Emperor's Cup and goes to somewhere.
It could also represent the river that you fish on that year. Like this river is going to be the most plentiful, and thus like people go to harvest from it.
And it could be like there's the wisdom of that, where it's like you don't overfish one place.
It could also be just like it could be something as simple as it dictates a meal that becomes like the meal you eat in the following year during that week of like
that's
of celebrations. Like, yep, bore won last year, so it's like there's this certain associated meal that everybody sells it or whatever.
Yeah.
And then, this time Din won. So, okay, and everybody has this special.
That's something cool.
That's interesting.
As simple as that. And and it just tells you, oh, that's who won last year. Yeah.
I think
that's neat.
I think, we're diving into some of the cultural aspects, which is the thing that I'm really excited about this is how does this tournament affect the world around it? And how do people like see, like, an example I thought of, which I thought was really interesting, is what happens if like a sword school cadet, like, or like, I guess a cadet isn't the right word, but like a student of the sword school, like, is, who in general has to like help, like is helping the town and is offering, community services and is like well respected. Like people really respect the sword school, at least within Yatterman. And the person that is making trouble is like a drunkard at the thing, is one of like the top 24. Maybe they're 23, so they're not like the or maybe they're about to be in the 24. They're like this amateur, a tournament person who's just about to peek into it. Culturally, like, is it like, no, you give that person a pass? Like they're being a dirtbag right now. Like, yes, but like, like we want them, like we respect this person, they're important within the community, so like we're gonna like, or is it like if they did get in a scrap, which side does the community lean to? Do they go like, no, it's the student, like they're doing the right thing and we can't give a pass to this person because they're a jerk?
I mean, I don't think it has to be like one way or the other. Like I'm thinking again using baseball, like if one of my favorite players turned out and he was like a jerk at like a bar or something like that, I would probably lose a lot of interest in that player. But some people would be like, I don't care as long as he's playing well, kind of thing.
Sure. But I think what I'm saying is in Obojima, we tend to like within, we're kind of saying that like it's this idyllic culture where you don't really like, there's a lot of things you don't do and people respect each other. And so like my point I'm trying to say is, do these performers / athletes get special treatment in some way? Are they how are they revered outside of this? Is it just celebrity, like pure celebrity? And so like some people will be excited and some people won't care. Or is it like, no, they deserve respect, not just like an admiration, but they deserve a level above
they're
and
better
beyond.
Than you. Yeah.
Right.
I think, it's like again, sumo is kind of an interesting example because for one, these wrestlers are basically, literally giving their lives to the sport. Like the sumo, they're modifying their bodies in a very sort of extreme way. And it also is very hard on their, so that they don't live, their life expectancy goes down. So I think people on one level recognize that. So when a sumo wrestler walking around, there is this sort of celebrity, but there's also this culture of that there is a way to conduct yourself as a sumo wrestler. So, if a sumo, a wrestler has a moment of being human, whether they have some bad behavior, the sumo organization will reprimand them and then force them to have a public apology, may even demote them or banish them, which is like horrifying. So they kind of all check each other. So they make sure like, if somebody's kind of going off the rails, because they kind of all walk in groups because they have their sort of their wrestling school. They have sort of friends who go with them to make sure that nothing goes sideways. But there is this sort of like a code of honor. There's this, warrior culture. There's this, this respect that they have for the actual sport and for even a deeper meaning of it. So you kind of want to conduct yourself a certain way. So I feel like these people would kind of be living under that. So they would walk around the town and people would be like, oh, we want to, get an autograph or something. But generally they are pretty well behaved because it's part of, as you're training, you're kind of, whereas this might not be quite like a sumo. This might be different.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a great question is, do we see them being this like honorable organization, or are they, it's a more mismatched, like,
I mean, it's quite right. There's a difference where you're talking about this being like a person's entire identity is this thing, right? And like there's the culture that surrounds it, and like there's no such thing as like behavior on the field or off the field. It's like you're always on the field, kind of, right? Like there's no,
you're always a sumo
because the things that you do when you're not, actively wrestling, that still can be taken into account for your rank, which is an in-game thing. So like that's a question. Like, is there an expected kind of code of conduct? Are they supposed to represent something in the society, or is it simply this is a sport, like full stop, right?
I mean, it's kind of like baseball in the 1920s, where you went and played baseball and then you went back to your job.
As a steel worker.
Yeah, you're just
not making $700 million.
No. And it's the same with the sumo. Like a sumo, you don't have another job. So are these competitors in this sport? Do they have other jobs? It's like they're a blacksmith by day, but then every, a month or two before the grand tournament arena, they're like, I've got to quit my blacksmithing and I've got to go train because, it's time.
I feel like it's more like that.
Yeah.
Because
it feels more Obojima.
Yeah, I don't know that like yes, within Obojima culturally, I think like specifically in Yatterman too, they're more likely to like be okay with going with the arts or the sport. Like it's less, desire to function. But at the same time, I don't see people, unless they're like philosophers or monks, like the type of people that would just like, well, I only work for 2 months of the year and then the rest of the time I'm just like off doing random stuff. I feel like they'd, like you'd be expected to be like, okay, you've done your thing and we respect you, but now you're still the local baker. So go and like you're still like start baking, right? Like
we need our donuts, buddy.
Like outside of this, you live within Yatterman, and Yatterman gives, like works with each other and helps.
Is that like I think about how it applies to the game, beyond just like, the cultural event as like a backdrop for an adventure? Like, would it be a background for like a character background? It's like, yeah, you are this is what you did. You were an aspiring this thing.
Yeah.
That would be fun.
So you have these certain skills.
That's
what
really
we have to determine. What are the skills? Like, if you're talking about sumo or any wrestling or, baseball, like there's a collection of skills for that game. But if we're saying there's lots of different events, what makes me a good, athlete in this sport?
I think what you'd probably say within that is like the background's like you were a person and that did this thing, and then you get to choose which game you are good at, and that game gives you like expertise in 2 skills.
Right, so you have like a specialty.
And then like maybe one other thing. So it's like one generic thing that applies to everything, and then the skills or whatever thing you get is based off of that game. So you get to pick the game that you're really good at. Is a possibility.
Kind of like, what made a good Survivor, competitor, or American Gladiators. It's like
I will share this. This is one of the coolest things I've seen. Like, I'm not a Survivor. I don't watch Survivor. My brother watches it religiously. But every once in a while I'll watch it. And this is something that happened years ago. There was an event, and it was, I have like a plate with something on it, and then you have a plate with something on it. And the goal is I have to make sure your plate hits the sand before mine does.
Yeah.
And so everybody was playing where like they're being really cagey about it and like just trying to like swat at the other person while keeping theirs upright. And then one guy like actually like internalizes the rules. It's like all that has to happen is that yours has to hit the sand before mine, and just threw his up in the air and then just like tackled the person to knock their thing down, and his was, there, and it came down second. And it's like thought about like, okay, the actual way to win this game is to take a risk, right? And I thought like stuff like that. So there is about the there's the outside of the box thinking.
Yeah.
There's a certain cunning that comes into this, because there's also politics in Survivor, this is a different thing than Survivor, but that's part of the element. Is it's not just it's the mind game, or it's the mental constitution to like also endure that long. So if there are things like that I find really intriguing, but that's different. It's a different game altogether. Yeah. But there are things about like being clever.
Yeah. And there would be something interesting with our, say most of the competitors live in Yatamon, but because we've kind of started to determine that it's not your full-time job, it's not something that's like officially sanctioned, it's just this sort of people gather together at this certain time. There might be like, oh, here comes so-and-so from Toggle.
Yeah.
Like,
I love that.
Sally, and everybody's like, oh, Sally, remember her last year? Like, she is a freak, and here she comes from Toggle, and she's a minor, and she's just like, ugh. And she wanders in, and certain fans come out and make a line, and they've got their placards, and she rides in with her sort of entourage. Like, there could be this, like, people arriving.
Are migrating.
They're migrating.
The great
over.
migration for the games.
Yeah.
You're out there as an adventurer being like, what are you two up to? Yeah. And they're like, oh, we're heading, like, in about 2 weeks, the games are going to start, and we need to hightail it over to Yatamon.
Yeah.
Or it could also be that you are sort of hired to escort these competitors. Yeah. Like, hey, they've got to make it to the game, and they're going through Howler country. We need adventurers to protect them as they get through.
Maybe that's how you could connect the Courier Brigade too. It's like the Courier Brigade gets sent to everyone and be like, hey, you're within the ranking. You've been invited back.
Right. Yeah. If you want to make your way to Yatamon, everybody meet at this like hub.
Yeah.
And it's like Toggle is one of these hubs or whatever. It's like regionally everybody gathers at these places and they all kind of like
that's another
train
cool
their way
thing.
over.
Is like everybody's waiting at taverns to see if they got accepted. It's almost like you're
cool.
did I get into like, Yale or whatever, Cambridge, like, and they're waiting and all their parents are there, and then all of a sudden they come and they're like, you
like, I'm on the cusp. I just need Adam to lose. If Adam loses, I'm in, but if Adam wins, I'm out. Right, like that kind of
friendly, rivalries.
I love it.
That's fun. Yeah.
Okay, there's a lot more we could do.
Oh yeah, we can keep going.
The puck of time has told us to stop.
The puck of time, like. Over the years, I think I'm beginning to see it as a brutal tyrant,
as an enemy,
to
the state.
One day I'm just going to hit it with a hammer.
That'll be
smash that way.
Yeah. Maybe that's what we'll do in the last episode.
Just ritually sacrifice the puck of time.
And then consume it.
Yeah, and then consume it, and then time
to gain
stops.
Its god powers.
Yeah, and we go into another dimension.
Go running? Is that the
That's right. If we can't run around the building.
I can't. Yeah. It's already time. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us. Like and subscribe. Let us know in the comments below what cool game you think could be a part of this. Like,
we didn't really get into a lot of the events.
And if they involve like ritual sacrifice and consumption,
let us know.
That's bonus points. Yeah.
Discord, Reddit, TikTok, Instagram, Spotify, YouTube, all those places. Follow us, give us a like, listen to the other podcast episodes.
Oh my.
And other cool things.
There are many.
Anyways, thank you so much, and we will catch you next time.